Hi everyone, thanks for joining this presentation today about offshore welfare solutions. My name's Faye. I've been with OEG nearly 7 years now, and I've been involved in the welfare service line for the past 3 years. I'm going to take you through a few slides discussing a topic that until recently has potentially been slightly overlooked in the offshore wind sector. A brief history of OEG welfare solutions. So the welfare idea was the first idea that OEG invested in back in 2021 when they entered the renewables market. We saw essentially a gap in the market. There was no welfare solution offshore at present, and what was a solution offshore wasn't considered kind of a permanent fix for considering how long the wind turbines are going to be installed for and the place of work there. So in 2022 they designed two concepts: one welfare unit that could be installed in sites that were being constructed, and one that was being installed in O&M sites, the ones that were already installed, a bit older. In 2023 we secured our first contract, so that was to install welfare units on the Aberdeen Bay offshore wind farm, so only a small site, but that gave us a real kind of foot on the market to get these towers installed and get people to know about them a bit better. And then from there we've really gone from strength to strength. So in 2024 we secured some major contracts with developers such as RWE and Ørsted, and then by the end of 2025 we had installed over 500 welfare units, and already in 2026 we've hit 1,000 installed. Workplace health and safety and welfare, so it has always actually been in the health and safety that, sufficient toilet and washing facilities should be provided to allow everyone at work to use them without unreasonable delay. This includes offshore wind farms as well, but I think potentially until recently it's maybe been an out of sight, out of mind kind of situation. It's not somewhere that is feasible to really plumb in a fully working toilet and bathroom in a wind turbine. We fully understand that's not the case. So a kind of different solution needed to be thought of. And I know, speaking to a few wind farms, particularly in the UK recently, it is becoming more of a necessity to improve the welfare situations on wind turbines. So all construction sites going forward need to have a more permanent solution. Guys are going to be working on these towers for up to 25 years. It's not a kind of ad hoc place of work. So there's definitely been a bit of pressure from the HSE executive recently for people to improve their solutions. So welfare and offshore wind, why do we need it? There's three key points really. First one is safety. So the main kind of solution that people use at the moment is to go and transfer onto the CTV to use the toilet there. Now that obviously increases the number of transfers, and we want to try and avoid that as much as possible because every transfer is an increase in risk. And the other pain point is it increases hygiene levels offshore. So being able to have access to hand sanitizer, hand washing facilities, a proper toilet where you can go increases hygiene levels offshore. The second point is diversity. So we're trying to make offshore wind more accessible to women, increasing welfare offshore and make it a more attractive place to work rather than it just not being that kind of attractive to be on a tower for up to 8 to 10 hours and not being able to access those facilities. And then the final point is productivity. So reducing the number of transfers needed throughout the day on the CTV increases your time on the asset, increases your productivity. Having access to a welfare unit can turn a 5-minute job into, if you're needing to use a CTV, up to an hour, depending on where in the field that is. So it increases your time on the asset, therefore increasing the productivity offshore. So we kind of came up with two key concepts for the in-tower welfare unit, as I mentioned previously. One to be installed during O&M and one to be installed during construction. So O&M, the challenges are the turbines are smaller, the access is quite difficult, so we designed a flat pack version. So all of these panels on the side here can be broken down into individual panels. They can be kind of manual handled by individual people because they're less than 20 kilograms, meaning they can be installed in whichever access level the client decides. So if they need to go in the lifts, they can go in the lifts. If they need to go down the hatches, they can go down the hatches. Turbine doors as well are quite small, so we're able to get them in more easily. And then the other one, if the client is fortunate enough to have planned them in advance, they can be installed during construction. So at pre-assembly, when all of the component parts are on the quayside, they can be lifted in that current state there, fully built, We provide like the LOLA certification, the rigging, so they can be lifted directly into the tower and fixed, ready to then be transported offshore. So that is the much easier way, but obviously appreciate some sites are in O&M and haven't got welfare facilities. So key considerations for that is we will need to, either we, OEG, can provide technicians to install them and build them, or the client can provide it themselves. So our welfare units are cassettes operated, so essentially the kind of welfare units you see in motorhomes and caravans. The waste is collected in this grey cassette here, and each welfare unit comes with one cassette. On the side of the welfare unit here, there's an indicator that goes from green to red. So at green, it means the cassette can be used and the toilet can be operated normally. Red, it means it's got 1 or 2 uses left and then it needs to be swapped out. So we recommend that clients purchase an additional 25% number of cassettes to the number of turbines there are on site. So if you've got 100 towers, get an extra 25 cassettes basically. And that essentially allows the technicians to constantly be able to swap out cassettes, take them to potentially a fish box on the quayside where they're stored, and then we can get called up to come and take them away, clean them, and put them back into circulation. So they're not something that you have to throw away after every use. They can be kind of cleaned, sanitized, and put back into circulation. And service agreements can be put in place with local certified waste carriers, or we're able to organize that for clients as well. So key considerations. So the first one, if you're considering getting a welfare unit in your wind turbines, where are you going to place it? There's been multiple discussions with clients who have based it on footfall, so where is the most popular place in a tower that people go? You also need to consider if you need to access it via the basement. That's sometimes near some HV stuff. Do they need an additional certification for that? Do they need to be trained in the lift if it's going up a level? You know, there's additional kind of training and certificates that you need to take into consideration to make it accessible for everyone. You don't want to install it in a location that only 10% of the workforce can actually access due to their training. Another one, so you can see a different image coming up actually. The wind speed and lifting. So there's a large surface area on the flat pack units, which means when you lift it from the CTV to the asset, it can really start to spin if the winds are too heavy. So we've put in a limit of 7 meters per second, which drastically reduces the actual working days you can install them on. But there's ways you can work around that. So when you've got low wind speed days, you can just go and preload as many as you can before going to install them. And then installation. So if you are going down the flat pack route, do you have a CTV on site that can assist, or an SOV? Do you have technicians that are there to install, or do you require us to come with a fully kind of integrated solution, providing the access method, providing the workforce, providing the lift bags and the tooling and equipment, for example? So yeah, this is the image I was referring to a minute ago. So that is an image of a flat pack unit being lifted from the CTV deck up to the TP. You can see it does have a quite a large surface area, and that one does have a ballast bag on it of about 100 kilograms just to help with the weight. In our track record to date, there's a few additional sites for 2026 we have added, but this is a real mixture of kind of construction sites where they were pre-built and O&M. Our largest one to date was for Ørsted last year, where we installed over 250 units in one campaign. So that was a CTV filled with 4 teams of 3, essentially going from Walney, Westerdon Sands and Burbo. The final kind of unit we have is one that doesn't necessarily go on wind turbines. This one is more suitable to substations, so it's essentially a portable toilet and a lifting frame. So it's not cassette operated. You have to take it off the asset back to the quayside when it needs to be cleaned. But essentially they're fully kind of LOLA certified. We provide the rigging, we provide the inspection certificates, and they're really popular on sites where, for example, they might be an O&M, but they might have a really busy campaign on the substation and they need to increase their welfare facilities due to the amount of personnel working on the asset. And these kind of can be lifted offshore, do a 3-week rotation or 2-week in line with the SOV, then brought back onshore for cleaning and just continuously circulated like that. Some construction campaigns have them on for the entire duration. and that's also fine as long as there's a routine in place where they come back on the SOV for cleaning, which is again something we can organise. So just a brief history again on our track record with the rental units. A real mixture of construction and O&M here. Some took up to 10 units, some for construction. For EA3, for example, they needed a solution on their TP prior to the turbine being installed, so we actually rented around 25 to 30 units to them to have on their TPs, and then they'd take them back onshore as soon as the wind turbines are installed, because that's also a consideration. People are working on the foundation prior to the turbine being installed. What kind of solution is in place for them as well? So yeah, it's definitely a topic that is becoming ever increasingly more popular in offshore wind, albeit potentially not a topic most people are kind of keen to discuss or spend money on potentially. But yeah, we've kind of been at the forefront of it since 2021, developing ideas as and when like the health and safety regulations kind of get updated and change, taking into account that it's a difficult location to actually install a toilet on. It's not your standard office location. But yeah, I think that's the last slide for me now, but I'm around on the stand if anyone has any further questions. I'll be here until this afternoon, and feel free to take my contact details as well if there's any other questions.